Mom, not now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on. No, I did it. Yeah, I did it. Did you change the cat box? I don't have a cat. Mom, come on.
Great.
I follow him.
When I introduce you, come up. That'll be great. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Hey, Chris, if you want to wait right here, we'll just quickly do it. Okay, great. Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the CBGB's Festival. How are you? My name is Matt Pinfield, and when I found out they were doing the CBGB's Festival, I was very excited that they were bringing back the spirit of what really matters about CBGB's, which is so fantastic. I first went to CBGB's when I was a young teenager because you could get in underage back in those days before MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. In 1980, I started seeing shows there. We would come in from central New Jersey, and I saw so many great bands at CB's, and we loved the place because discovering that bands like the Ramones and the Dead Boys and Talking Heads, Richard Hell, Blondie, and so many others, television, this is where they started. If you were interested in new music and you were adventurous, CB's was the place to go. It was a place you wanted to get to. It was that utopian dream of going to hear music that wasn't being played in every nightclub and bands that were playing that kind of music. So it's exciting to be here today. What I want to say, I want to make a couple quick announcements. First, there are going to be some great panels all day long, and there's a lot of good speakers. So if you want to stick around, there's a lot of stuff happening, including in this room, but in this building today. So please stick around and check out some of the other CBGB's panels as well. And for the folks that are in the press that are going to be doing the individual things with Krist, he will be doing them afterwards downstairs on the lower level, just so you know that's where it's going to be, because there's going to be a new panel in after this. All right, so we all know how important CBGB's is and what it's meant to New York City and to the underground music scene. So the person I'm going to introduce next, I'm honored to introduce him. I've known him for a long time, and his band carried that ethic, the DIY ethic in the underground that CB's started, and was one of the things like CB's and some of the other great clubs here in America and in London, and took it to a whole new level. They obviously were such an influential band, and I'm talking about Nirvana, of course. And not only that, but because Chris has been active in politics up in Seattle for a while, he's taking it to a national level. There's a lot of things going on. You might have heard about that exotic music law or erotic music law they were trying to pass. He was getting musicians mobilized to deal with that and to stop people from stopping artistic freedom. And there was also the organization of Jam Pack, which I'm going to let Chris explain. And of course, most recently, he's been talking about the Fair Voting Act. So I'm going to let him introduce him today. Let's hear it, everyone. Please welcome Krist Novoselic. Yeah, no, this one right there. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. It's nice to see you again. Haven't seen you in a long time. So I have a prepared remarks here, but I'm going to keep it kind of short. Maybe we'll keep it interactive, take some questions. Matt's going to be the moderator of the questions, and so it'll be kind of like the Phil Donahue show. Or no, what's that, Jerry Springer or whatever. Start fighting or whatever. Because things are so interactive these days with technology, so I'll be speaking about technology. Congratulations to the CBGB Festival, first year of promoting music again in New York City. Music's so important to me, and I'm, so many people. I started listening just as a little boy with my father in the garage, which now it's called a man cave, right? And he had a 4-track player, not an 8-track player, a 4-track player, and we would listen to things like Chuck Berry and Dick Dale and the Rolling Stones, and I still remember all those songs, and they made such an impression on me. And so music's always stuck with me. I've always been into it. And so it's about 1979, 1980. 1980, I was 15 years old, and I was discovering bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. At the same time, bands that were a part of the CBGB scene, Talking Heads, Blondie, the Ramones. I was discovering those bands too. So I never had this like old wave or new wave thing going. It was all wave all the time. So I never delineated things or, pigeonholed music. So I really feel lucky to have that kind of inspiration. It was a few years after that. It was 1983. I was working at a Taco Bell in Aberdeen, Washington, and these freakers walked in there, and they were in this band called the Melvins. It was Buzz Osborne was the main instigator there, and we started talking about music, and he introduced me to punk rock, or American hardcore too, which had that lineage to CBGBs again, punk rock, and United Kingdom with Sex Pistols, Clash, or even Iggy Pop in the Stooges. So there's that whole line of punk rock music. So I discovered American hardcore music, and it was a very broad palette. Like Meat Puppets were country punk, Butthole Surfers were psychedelic, Black Flag was really hard music, kind of like Black Sabbath. And so I really got into it, and it. A lot of times, people, music saved my life, and it did for what was going on in my life, to have the opportunity to connect with these bands. It was really neat, and but I also found myself in a subculture. So there were other individuals like myself who really didn't fit in with the dominant culture. We really weren't into what was in the mainstream media, and so we dressed differently. And we knew we were in this subculture, and I think Henry Rollins summed it up best with the Black Flag song, "Living in the mainstream is such a lame dream." That was the lyric, and that really resonated. But there was a lot of there was this ideology about punk rock. It was like a way of life, and so we would complain and mock the mainstream, like, oh, look at those, whatever, people were into Dayglow clothing back then, and we just thought Dayglow was lame. We were buying things at the Salvation Army. We thought we were cool, So, and so there's a whole ethic, and this whole community was built around punk rock, and it was a network, a web. Before I ever heard of the internet, there was this web of people connecting through fanzines, which is before the blog. There was a fanzine, so you get an individual would cut out pictures and paste them and type band reviews or try to get something off their chest. They would distribute these fanzines. There'd be 10 of them or there'd be 100 of them. It didn't really matter. And so that's how this web communicated different scenes: Washington, D.C., New York City, Bay Area, Los Angeles, and in Seattle we had our robust punk scene. Yay, Seattle, right? You like Washington?
From Seattle.
Oh, you're from Seattle, right on. God bless you. I don't live in Seattle anymore. I live on the coast. I live in the woods. So there was this scene, and we communicated through this network of bands. There was traveling bands, travel throughout the United States, the fanzines, and then there was the music, the records, and the labels, SST Records, Discord. They were putting out records all the time, and so that's how we had folks who had shared needs and values, youth, and we made our own way. We decided to build our own structure. And I recall back then, I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but there was this symbol that was really dominant. If you look at that literature, the fanzines and on the record covers, it was that A with the circle around it, the anarchy, right? And so basically what we were doing is we built an anarchist structure as we were meeting the needs of youth and what we needed. We associated in groups, and we came together outside of the government, outside of the corporate sphere. It was totally independent. It was like a third way, okay? And we made it happen. And it was really great. Page 2, my narrative. So along the way, I helped start a band. I picked out a lot of those records that I listened to. Punk rock was an ideology. Some people were over the top with it. It was just like they disavowed the dinosaur bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith. That's just old hippie stuff. The new god is punk rock. Those are false gods and false prophets. And I never really bought into that kind of ideology or perspective. Like, what? A great riff is a great riff. It doesn't matter, right? Applause for all the great riffs out there. And there's great riffs are still to be found. They're out there. Okay, so I never trashed those records, all right? And so I was actually picking along to them, you know, playing guitar. And I met some other aspiring musicians. I met Kurt Cobain. He was a guitar player, and he had an amp. And I had a guitar, but I didn't have an amp. But I knew somebody who had a bass guitar and a bass amp. And the bass amp was the brand PMS. And I don't know. I know what that means, but not as I don't know what that means in regards to like bass amps. But I had this PMS amp and this that I borrowed. So I was a bass player, but I really got into playing bass. Okay. And we hooked up with this person. Eventually, we had different drummers, and we hooked up with this musician from Washington, D.C., Dave Grohl. And that's how we had that incarnation of Nirvana. So at that time, you could hear it in Seattle, how all those influences converged with the big riff, right? Because Soundgarden had big riffs, Mudhoney had big riffs, there's Pearl Jam, there's Nirvana, so many other bands. We came together, but we didn't do it by ourselves. There was a whole structure supporting us. There were clubs. There were promoters. Okay, so I mentioned like anarchism, right? But there's also some hardcore raw capitalism that goes on with like a promoter, which is total boom or bust industry. If anybody who's ever promoted a show here knows, like you could make money one night and eat your shorts the next night. Okay, so there was that form of capitalism, and then there was an infrastructure. Okay, so when you go to a Mudhoney show, there was like a ritual of just slopping beer everywhere and everybody writhing in these mounds of sweat, okay? So like there were beer distributors who loved the Seattle scene because the truck would pull up and then be the man with his dolly. Hey, fellas, here's your beer to spill all over yourself. So, you know, again, we were just associating and we made this scene and one thing led to another. And a mainstream magazine started to write about Seattle. The English press really picked up on it. Jerry from the UK coined the term grunge rock. So we had a name. So we had a community. Again, you know, it came together. And all these bands started to sign onto major labels. And it just seemed like every week there was a new report of a new band. They got signed to a major. They got signed to a late major. They got signed to a major. They got signed to a major. So, hello, corporate rock. And I actually got a call from Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth. And she's like, Chris, Nirvana should get on Geffen Records. And I'm like, well, geez, if Sonic Youth is on Geffen Records, we should probably be on Geffen Records. So we did, and we signed up. Corporate rock whores. We were. Bye-bye anarchism. You know what I mean? What is it? Matsushita Electronics is what it was. You know, that's Panasonic. Right? Well, the other one was Sony. So there was this other whole chain of like corporate conglomerate with Sony. We were Panasonic by the time it came down to like, yeah, we were on Geffen. We weren't even on Geffen. We were on DGC Records, which was like the cool offshoot or whatever of the corporate rock phenomenon. And so, well, a lot of history was written about that. And we released the record Nevermind in September of 1991. And they printed up 50,000 copies. And that was supposed to last us a couple years, like indie gold, right? Well, we got on heavy rotation on MTV. We were getting added on all these radio stations. And then we were doing this little tour of Europe. And then we were getting these phone calls and messages from folks back home. It was like, you guys are blowing up, man. You're all over TV, your song. And so Nirvana turned into this phenomenon. Smells Like Teen Spirit was this huge song. At the same time, you couldn't buy the record because they only printed 50,000 copies of it. So there was like 2-3 weeks where, you know, people would go to like Tower Records or wherever. They couldn't buy it. So that kind of added to the phenomenon. Well, needless to be said, the wheels of commerce were turning, and they got that CD plant to to crank them out. We went on just selling millions and millions of records. So there was a lot of, I could talk about Nirvana for hours. But what could I say? I'm very proud of Nirvana. And when people stop me all the time and recognize me, like, you're the bass player in Nirvana, right? You're Chris. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm like, thank you so much. That music means so much to me. And I always use that as an opportunity to remember Kurt Cobain, because his artistic vision and then he was such a driven artist, and that's my opportunity to say that's for you, dude. And so that's my regret that Kurt Cobain isn't alive and didn't live. And he was a wonderful person, and he deserved a fulfilling life. So that was in 1994, and in about 1995, I got involved in music issues in Seattle, like political issues. And so you had the grunge rock explosion out of Seattle. Like you had the Space Needle, Mount Rainier, all these grunge rock. You had all these images, icons of Washington and Seattle. But if you go to look at the city council, or if you go to the Washington State Legislature, there was all this anti-music legislation. They had this thing called the Teen Dance Ordinance. And it was a piece of, you know what? This is a family-friendly event. So if you were never mind that you were a minor younger than 18, if you're an adult between the ages of 18 and 20 years old, you couldn't go to a Mudhoney show. You couldn't go to a small-scale show, because they had all these rules about teen dances, and somehow adults got wrapped up into it. Then we figured out it was all about the Washington State Liquor Control Board. And they're trying to regulate alcohol, but somehow they're regulating music. And so we built all these relationships with lawmakers, with regulators, with music fans, musicians, promoters, all these folks that were part of this infrastructure say, we got to be pro-music here. Our music community is an asset and not a liability. We add cultural and economic vitality to the region, okay? And then people are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why do we have this deal? So we went to the Liquor Control Board. They're like, well, we don't want minors drinking alcohol. I'm like, well, we don't want it either. Alcohol is a powerful drug, okay? And so you're the Liquor Control Board. If a club serves alcohol to a minor, perhaps they should lose their license or get a suspension. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's what we do. Well, exactly, that's what you do. They're like, and that's what you want. Yeah, do your job. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, all right. And so then we started to have all ages shows, and sure, if their club was run right, you could have minors there. And if somebody was irresponsible and a minor was served alcohol, that's a problem with a club. And they have all kinds of incentives. Some clubs chose to do it, some clubs chose not to participate. So it's just a freedom, voluntary thing. It's just more latitude for folks. And we worked with the city council with the teen dance ordinance, and we worked with the fire department, parents, police department, clubs, and we came up with this all ages dance ordinance, which was made shows more accessible. Washington State, make a long story short, Washington State had this erotic music law. So we started to support pro-music candidates for the state legislature. And I remember that year, I think it was a 96 election, is we went around and we bundled checks. Because you know what they say, that money is speech in politics? We heard it loud and clear. Money, speech, absolutely. And there was a lot of money in Seattle at that time because music industry was booming. And I would go to pro-music legislators and bingo, here's the envelope. Here it is, okay? Not that we were buying these folks, okay? But we were supporting them because they were pro-music. We wanted them to get it to be elected and not the anti-music jerk, okay? So money can be speech. So you could see how we got it together, and we had, again, it was association. So it was like, common needs and shared goals. And I wrote a bunch of notes about the Jam PAC, the Joint Artist and Music Promotions Political Action Committee, a PAC. We weren't a super PAC, but we were a PAC. We just used the rules. So it's like, okay, we'll get together and we'll play the game as it's played, okay? We did that. And along the way, I got a civic education. I learned about democracy and participation, like the nuts and bolts. It's just like, I would ask very basic questions. It's like, there's this one lady who was so anti-music, and it's like, well, we should run somebody against her. And then the long-timers would be like, Krista, that's not going to happen, man. She's in a safe seat district, you know. We're like, what's that? It's a safe seat district because she runs unopposed, or there's, 60% these types of voters support her in that district. So you got to go into the swing districts here where, help these people who really need the help. And there's like 98 folks in the legislators in the Olympia, but there's like 6 races that are like competitive. It's like the presidential race, like how many times has Obama been to New York State? Or how many times has Mitt Romney been to Texas, It's just not going to happen. So there was like, it's a value. So here we were a special interest, the PAC. So we went into these swing districts and we spoke, because money is speech, right? Okay. And I found out all these problems, like, well, we got to do something about this. Like, is that the best that it gets? Is this, what do we do? So I was online at the time, and I was doing a word search, and I came across all these voting terms like instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting, proportional representation, and like, what is this? And I looked into it, and it's like, wow, this is a cool way to elect people so everybody gets a voice. And it's not this foreign system like some Euro party list system or whatever. It's like this has been done in America and it's legal. So, and there was this group, Fair Vote, and I started to work. I contacted Fair Vote, and it was John B. Anderson was the chair at the time, and he ran for president in 1980. He was even on TV he debated Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. He made the presidential debate. He was on there, but he didn't get elected. So I started to get interested in these electoral reforms, and that's been a lot of the work that I've been doing, and I do it because I think, well, I feel or I know that things can get better in the United States, that things are really out of whack, things are really out of balance, and it's going to take people power. So it goes back to like the association in the punk rock days, or like fighting in Seattle or Washington legislature. It's just like, I'm sick of Congress too. I'm sick of the legislature too. I feel the same way, but what are we going to do about it? And there's just all this white noise. I'm just so tired of it. Hillary Clinton eats babies. I'm not making this up, folks. It's just like, what? Or, Obama was born in the Congo, It's like, Jesus, it's just ugly. You know what I mean? And I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of all the white noise on the right and on the left. So I feel like I want to do something about it. So that was my kind of how I've always operated like that. It seems like I've always been motivated. Well, let's do something about this teen dance ordinance, But with other folks, I've never done it alone. I may be up here alone on the stage, but I'm not a crusader, man. I'm not gonna save the world. I'm not gonna save the United States. I'm gonna have a lot of fun this weekend. You know what I mean? So, but I think we could start talking about this in the United States, and it's up to individuals. If people want it, we're going to get it. And I could answer questions about like some of the fair vote reforms. Proportional voting is you get like 3 congressional members in one district, and there's a way you can do the ballots. So there'd be a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, or a third party. Everybody gets independent. Everybody gets a congressperson because you pay taxes and you're subject to the laws of the land. We promote national popular vote, which is basically everybody in the United States should have a voice on who is the president, not just these 6 or 7 swing districts in America where all the special interests put all their money, the money speech. They get a good value, so they'll just put it in Ohio, Florida, wherever, 3, 4 more other states. And we also support a constitutional right to vote. There's no right to vote in the United States. And that's why you have states and jurisdictions pass all these voter disenfranchising laws, okay? There's voter suppression, and it's partisanship, okay? And it's the insiders, they're troublemakers, and they're protecting themselves, okay? So if we had a right in the Constitution, a right to vote in the United States Constitution, then all those laws would be null. So those are the three things, the main things that we're doing, okay? And I promise to keep this brief, and we can open up the floor. The last thing I want to touch upon is how technology is really a big part of association. Who here has a computer or a mobile thing? Oh, I'm on a panel. Every band needs a Facebook page, and a band should have its own website. The URL is like, oh, he's really with it, right? But there used to be panels like 20 years ago where they would say this, like there'd be a panel like, every band needs a website. Like, oh, that's a good idea, right? But now it's just like, doing things or whatever. So you have social networking is exploding in the United States. Because I'm an old school associator. Like I was chairman of my local Democratic Party for about 5-6 years. Then I quit because I got tired of volunteering for a super PAC. And I'm a political independent now. I do this fraternal group called The Grange. It's a public service group. We just raise money to give it away, volunteer work and those kind of things. And I hear from folks who are like, when you go to the old part of town and the Elks Club is closed down, or the Odds Fellows is like a shambles. Like, well, how come people aren't associating anymore? And I'm like, what do you mean? Have you ever heard of Twitter or Facebook? It's Twitter, the association's exploding. It's just in a new form with the information revolution. Is that the bourbon? No, I was kidding. They're gonna have spirits here. But I'm working. So you have these new forms of association, and I'm really excited about that as a kind of a politico. So there's going to be these startup groups. You know how they have the techie startups, Silicon Valley startups trying to be the next big thing, okay? So like I work with this group called the Ruckus, ruck.us, and it's trying to get people to organize around certain issues and get active. There's another one, Direct Congress. That one's really interesting. There's another one of these, there was a startup called Americans Elect, and they actually got on the ballot in a lot of states in the United States, and they spent a lot of money doing it. It was disappointing that it was just before its time, okay? They wanted to have people come together online and nominate a candidate for president and vice president and stand those people, put them on the ballot in these states, okay? And doesn't that just make sense? Would you put your money behind something like that? Well, imagine it's 1995, okay? And so I put $50,000 into this search engine thing, right? And it doesn't take off, and I lose the money. I'm like, whatever. And then these kids come in like 1997, like, we're starting this thing called Google, and could you put your money into it? Like, no, Google. Yeah, Google. Nah, I'm not interested. It'll never take off. I had a bad experience. We'll give you a big share of the company. Nah, I just don't see it. Okay. Somebody out there is going to do it. Maybe it's you. Okay. It's going to be this convergence of political association and social networking, and they're going to find this sweet spot, and they're going to do it right, and they're going to dominate politics for the next generation. It's not just me saying this. There's this book, Millennial Makeover, by Heiss and Winograd, and they do this generational theory. They go all the way back to like the Lincoln-Douglas debates, and they map technology, the telegraph, and the radio, the television, and how this impacted politics and culture. And so their thesis is that this millennial generation from born 1983, 2002, something like that, because of the way they're a civic generation, and whoever connects with them with this digital platform and politically will dominate politics for the next generation. I mean, these are scholars that are saying this, okay? And I see it. I think I'm really excited about it. It's just a matter of time before it all comes together. Why couldn't the Democrats and Republicans why couldn't they have an online component to the nominations this year? It's 2012, okay? And you know, primaries and caucuses, Republicans and Democrats are private organizations, even though they're integrated with government and they're the ultimate insiders. Essentially, they're private organizations, and they have the First Amendment rights of a group. Okay, well, why couldn't they have like an online option, like so you don't have to vote in the in a primary, on a ballot, or in a caucus? Washington State had these archaic caucus rituals. You know, you just do it online. I mean, and there's a whole marketplace of online voting companies for private groups. I'm not saying in the public general election, the official election, to do it yet. People need to be comfortable with it, and there's like security questions, okay? But for this private group, I mean, there's what kind of groups am I thinking of? A condominium association or whatever. They vote online. Some medical trade group, they vote for their chair and their board of directors. All these groups, you can go just do a word search for, like, if you believe word searches work. No, just do a word search and you can just see these groups or these companies that sell this service. And you just kind of read, who are they representing? Like, wow, they do the National Association of Dentists, it must be a reputable group. I'll trust them with my organization's online elections, okay? I don't know, I think I know why the Democrats and Republicans didn't do it, because they don't care. That's why, because they're a soft money conduit. They're a super PAC is what they are. And that's why I quit, okay? Because you can only give so much money to an individual candidate, and you can give a lot more money to a party, and that's what they're about. It's not about association, the voice of a group, okay? If we all got together here, we would vote on a chair, vice chair, or whatever. I'll get to that in a second, but it's a soft money conduit. So I'm going to wrap things up with this archetypal party that I started with Duff McKagan, a fellow bass player. And we're called the Rock Party, okay? And it started when he still writes for Seattle Weekly, and I was writing for Seattle Weekly for a while. And he wrote an article about, Krist, we got to get somebody to run. Do you want to run for office? I'm sick of politics, this and that. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to run for office. Because the last thing we need is a celebrity change agent, okay? People need to get together, and I spoke about this, my youngest punk rock days, just people need to get together and make their own structures. And so we need to start a rock party. And I made a logo. It was this Deep Purple record called In Rock. Have you ever seen it? Where they're like Mount Rushmore. It's so Spinal Tap. But I put Duff and my face on it, on it. John Glover, or is it Roger Glover? Glover is their bass player. Anyway, so this rock party is like, this is how we'll do it, man. We'll get together and we'll get some like-minded people, and we'll make this document of like our principles, like what are our values and what do we believe, okay? We believe like 10 things, okay? And those are like the tenets of our organization. And so that's like our manifesto, our constitution, okay? So you could change that, like the members could change it, but you need 2/3, 3/4 vote to do it. If you don't like it, you can just quit and go to another group, okay? So we have our charter members, and we start that. Then we invite people to participate. Like, come and join the Rock Party, okay? It's an online deal. We could even have a convention somewhere like the CBGB Festival. Like, say, pretend this is our convention. Okay, Rock Party delegates from the whole United States, I welcome you to our convention, okay? And so we invite people on board, and people read the tenets, and they're like, I could stand by these things. I like them. Okay, I'm going to join. And so people join, and you pay $5 a month because we don't take any special interest money. Okay, it's like a latte at somewhere. Okay, and we'll use that money for the party. So if we can get 10,000 people, we get $50,000 a month, which is pretty good. Way to start something. Keep the lights on, pay somebody, whatever. Okay, and then we'll let's draft a platform so the members get together, and there's certain thresholds where, like, if a resolution party platform reaches so much, it comes out of this committee and goes here and there, like different details or whatever. And then some people get mad and quit because they won't get their way, because party politics is messy. They'll drop off. It's a volunteer group. This is a private association. Then other people will come on board, okay? And then we'll elect leadership. Okay, start nominating candidates for chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, executive committee, okay? Basic kind of things. So we have an election, who's going to be the chair? And it's all the members. There's no smoke-filled back room, no party boss nomination here. The members choose. And finally, the most importantly, the members nominate candidates. In this state, we're going to run this person for United States Senate. We're going to run these people for the United States House. We're going for the state legislature. We're going to do city council here. Okay, it's an archetypal party, okay? So you can take it and run with it. It's just an idea is all it is, okay? So that's what the Rock Party is. And so if you think that politics are out of whack, okay, think about coming together with like-minded folks and having a voice. And a big part of that is changing the rules, making the rules more inclusive. We have like proportional voting, so your vote matters wherever you live instead of having insiders decide whose vote matters. So coming together and changing the rules and having as much fun as possible. In the meantime, because it's going to be a lot of work. This is a lot of work, and it's not a crusade. And as I was saying, it's not going to happen fast. So food for thought. You know, congratulations again to the CBGB Festival. Music, information panels, film. There's going to be film. And there's going to be spirits, you know. So if you want to knock one back, that's cool. But there's also a great spirit, a spirit of music and celebrating new bands, celebrating long-standing bands. And it's just that thread keeps going. And thank you for listening to what I have to say. Nobody walked out, which is good. Whew. Because I should have picked a sexier issue. Save the baby whales or something. There's all these heart-wrenching things, but anyway. And then we'll open up, Matt, if you want to, we can open up the floor for questions.
Absolutely. Okay, raise your hand and then I'll call on you. Okay, just tell us who you are and where you're from. That's all right. If you like, I'll give you the microphone here.
I'm John Perellis. I write for the New York Times. We met in the Space Needle many hundreds of years ago.
It is so nice to see you. Seriously.
Thanks. Did Nirvana play CBGB? Do you remember that?
No, I was supposed to confess that, and I forgot to confess. Nirvana never played CBGBs, but I went to a few shows there. I remember seeing the Hickoids there from Austin, Texas, and they were really good. And the lead singer would constantly like just maul his crotch as part of his deal. And then I looked over at Kim Gordon, and she looked at me because she was there, and I was like really embarrassed. But I thought the Hickoids were pretty good. But we would play at Maxwell's in Hoboken, and I don't remember the joint we would play here in New York. Pyramid Club. Yeah, I remember the Pyramid Club. Yeah, so that was our deal.
Absolutely. Another question? Okay.
Hi, I'm Louise from CBGB. Hi.
Hi, Louise.
We came really close to having Nirvana once for John, but Don Mueller wanted $300 more, your agent at William Morris. So he pulled it. He said it's not going to happen.
And gas prices were like $1 a gallon for our van. So it was like
he's like, I can't believe you're doing this. You're just stupid. And I was like, I just need $300. And he's like,
I know.
No. So
will you hire the
no hard feelings.
people? Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
I know we lost out too, yeah, because I'd be up here. I remember it was the best show of our night.
Okay, I'm going to pass the mic
It was
down
like the
to you.
stars came
You folks
together,
can pass the
and we
mic.
were all.
Introduce yourself and where you're from.
Hi, Chris. Thank you, by the way, for the keynote address. My name's Jared. I sing in a New York band, Bear Me a Lion, and we're lucky to be part of your festival, CBGB. That's an awesome opportunity for, I think, all these bands that are participating. I have two questions. One is, you spoke a lot about associations and their importance. How do you see that you and Kurt would have addressed, how you would have grown Nirvana in an age of more digital associations? I don't know if you give a lot of thought to that.
No.
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 And the other thing is, do you find that celebrity positively or negatively affects your work in politics?
Okay, the first question is it's just such sheer speculation. I mean, who knows? It's just again what I said earlier should have never happened. And second, yes, celebrity totally opens doors, and I've totally exploited it, and it's given me so many opportunities. It's made me who I am today. I mean, just with Nirvana, working with Kurt and Dave, I mean, that's the biggest thing I've ever done. I mean, it's totally opened doors, and I'm just so grateful it's such a blessing. It really is. I get to live in the woods in Washington State. A lot of people can't afford to do that. I live in my house is from 1890. It's like not even 2,000 square feet or whatever, but it's fine for me. But that's a luxury still, because a lot of people have to leave the area and have to work. Okay, so I just have all these blessings, and then I can do things. And again, I don't want to be a celebrity change agent. I don't think change is going to come like that. It's just people have to decide for themselves, and this is going to take time, and I think it's going to happen naturally. It's just things are so broken. I mean, we're going to be in a transition, and somebody's out there, and they're going to find the sweet spot, and they're going to converge social media and political association, and it's going to go crazy, and it's going to be a whole new ball game and a whole new politics. So
Next question, please. Here you go.
Hi, Krist. My name is Utpal Devi. Namaste. I'm making a movie about Indian music, Indian classical music, and I'm so inspired hearing you here because I had no idea what to expect from this talk, and the fact that you have given so much time to talking about how to create an enlightened society, how as musicians to get engaged and as artists to engage others. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas when talking about a music of another culture, how if you know, this question isn't premeditated, so it's coming out spontaneously. So I'm not exactly sure if I'm formulating it well. But do you have any ideas for how I can use this film to create some kind of multicultural engagement on a political level within New York City itself? Or is there a way, I mean, how do we energize artists more to become more politically engaged, to stand up for causes? I mean, I wonder, like, Indian classical music was really, you know, relevant and buzzing in the 60s, and at that time there was a lot more, you know, pro-peace among all musicians. There was like a great sense of consciousness, and do you find that exists today? Is it being, you know, is it growing again?
Well, there's a global consciousness. Who know? Like I mentioned the Washington D.C. scene, Bay Area, Seattle, and who knows where the next music's going to come from somewhere on the globe. I mean, people are connected all over the world. I really like MIA. I think she's great, and again, the internet is so vast, you can get buried in it. Yeah. At the same time, you got to find these portals that you trust, that you'll go back to, and so to help you filter all this information, because it's impossible to do yourself. So if you have a community of folks who share an interest in Indian classical music, if you can have your own blog, blog, or you could have this group of people in this community. I think you get more traction if you associate with other people. Yeah. That's just the way it's just natural for people to associate. It's just we're social creatures. That's how we've survived as a species. So it's just natural. Just get together with like-minded folks, but have as much fun as possible. Because that's what my whole philosophy is. Like, I'm not a celebrity change agent. I'm not a crusader. I'm not going to make this happen. I could share this idea with folks. Like, I could come up here and like have a bird in a cage, right? And I take the shroud off and like, look at my beautiful bird. And everybody paid me money, $20 a pop. Then I cover the bird and leave, and I get paid. Or I can just open the cage and the bird flies out, and it's your bird now. See you later. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to do. That's my analogy.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, next question. I'm going to get one right here. And say who you are or where you're from.
Tom, I'm from Philadelphia. I was wondering if, with online associating, if you found models that you've seen that maybe work especially well to kind of get people who, since the entrance online is pretty easy, to go make them active out in their own communities.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's another confession. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on online, the ins and outs of it. I do Twitter and I do Google+. Okay, and I do a few. My wife subscribes to New York Times, Economist, and then I bum her subscription on her computer, which is fair because it's the same household. But anyway, and it protects copyright. I didn't get into file sharing. Okay, I'm not going to tread into that. But even peer-to-peer, file sharing is peer-to-peer. Isn't that beautiful? Even though it's kind of working out. I downloaded some music from iTunes last night. Is That All There Is by Peggy Lee. Is that all there is? When I get down, I just crank that song and it lifts me up. But it just seems like tell me, why was Facebook so popular? Because of their interface, or they're in the right place at the right time? I mean, a lot of it's just phenomenal. That's why I'm not up here saying, uassociate.com is the next big thing, folks. You know, join now. And you know what I mean? It's just like you can't put your finger on it, but it's going to happen. Republicans and Democrats should be doing it. I don't get it. There's like in North Carolina, the Democrats did an unassembled caucus where you instead of doing their ritual where you show up for 2 hours and do all these things, you just show up, you declare your affiliation with a party, you vote on a ballot, and then you split. And that's what the French socialists did. And they won the presidential election. They had a privately funded primary last year, and they set up polls all over France. It cost €1 to vote. They made millions of euros doing this. €1, you made your affiliation with a party, private party. You voted for your favorite candidate, and you split. Then they counted the ballots, and there was no majority. They had a runoff, top 2 runoff. 2 weeks later, and Hollande, I hope I pronounced his name right, he went on. They coalesced behind one candidate. The losers graciously lost. He's our man. He's our candidate. They won the presidency. But see, people came together.
That's great. I'm going to hand the microphone down to you. Let us know your name and where you're from and what you're doing here today at CB's. And your question for Krist.
How you doing? Carrie Van Borg, International Business Times. You spoke earlier about the tidal wave of bands that were being signed back in the early 90s and sort of the wave of like corporate rock that was going on. How conscious were you guys as far as Nirvana and the scene surrounding you guys? How conscious of that were you and your band and everyone else, and just the amount of people that were being taken advantage of?
There were bands that refused to sign, like Pavement, Fugazi. They were fiercely independent. Okay, so I'm not going to stand here and say, "Hey, yeah, we were independent, we were anarchists, or whatever," because we signed on the dotted line. Okay, but it just, again, everybody was signing to labels like, let's do it. Sub Pop was going to do a deal where they were going to be distributed. That's why we signed, because we just didn't feel right about being on Sub Pop and then being on a major label. And it's just like, it just seemed kind of convoluted. So we decided to make our own way, and that's what we did. What was my train of thought here? We did it. We signed on the major label. I mean, we were fiercely independent. We were kicking and screaming. Oh, here's what I was going to say. We thought we were going to have cash in shopping bags. We thought we were going to have like all this cash, like, wow, look at this money. It's just like, what are we going to do with it all? I'm going to buy a new guitar. Yeah. Right on. Get a drum set. Absolutely. And we thought, well, maybe we could buy a house or something. Actually, we weren't that naive. I mean, but story, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But we were thinking like, oh, well, we'll get this money, we can buy this gear, maybe we can buy a house or something, do something. But the money was gone. We did the recording, you do professional fees, taxes, and it was just like all of a sudden it was like $250,000 was gone, and it wasn't spent frivolously. No, it was all done through the kind of, you get like over 30% was gone off the top for taxes.
Okay, next question, and say who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Lori, and I'm from Wyckoff, New Jersey. And I wanted to know your opinion on the LIBOR scandal that's going on and what you think should be done with the banks that crashed the global economy.
Oh, that's really out of my scope. No, seriously, yeah. That's a good question. I'm glad that you asked it to me. I don't know. I mean, people should be held. If I went and ripped the store off downstairs, I would have to be held accountable. You know what I mean? If you did something illegal, you should go to prison. That's the rule. Those are the rules, right? Yeah, it's a shame so many hardworking people came out on the raw end of something like that. But I don't. That's way out of my field. Way out of my field. I'm out of my field as enough as it is.
Hi, my name is Robin Chattel. I write for The Lowdown. It's a website here in New York about news from the Lower East Side. I have a two-part question. I guess the first part is, could you have imagined yourself, when you were playing with Nirvana, being a rocker, to be 20 years later doing this with the work that you're doing? And would you ever consider running for office?
I don't know what I was imagining back then. I was like kind of caught in a whirlwind. I'd probably never run for office because I don't need a job. Again, I have all these blessings, and I've been part of a lot of that process, and it's a lot of work. You got to go out. There's a sewer bond hearing in Raymond. You got all these. It's not as sexy, people, and I get the pomp and all that. A lot of people run for office. They like the pomp, and I already get that. I get enough of it as it is, so I don't need that. But I would like, if there were a new party, and if somebody I probably wouldn't take the chairmanship. I wouldn't take chairman if anybody nominated me, but I would take like secretary or something. I've been a secretary of a group, and so I would do something like that. I would be part of a group, but let somebody else do the campaigning and all the hard. It's a lot of work, so it's just. I play a lot of accordion. I do. I'm obsessed with it. Some people take like drugs and things. That's cool, or legal or illegal. That's cool, but that's not for me. And I play like accordion. And then some people have obsessions that are self-destructive or like embarrassing revelation. Well, this is kind of embarrassing revelation. I'm an accordion nut. But at least it's not self-destructive. Well, sometimes, to the people listening, like, get annoyed, but I don't know.
I have a question. First of all, you rock. I just want to say you rule, right? My question is completely off the beaten path, and it's I don't know if you can answer it, but if you had to pick back in their prime, Axl Rose versus Vince Neil, barroom brawl, who you got and why? That's my question.
I was the dipshit who'd walk in the middle of it. Seriously.
Hello, my name. Hello, Stephen Costes, Costes Cosmos Incorporated, participant in the advocacy group Free Press. Ever heard of them?
No.
Oh, they're like this media reform group.
I'll check it out.
Okay, and I just have two questions. One, should Occupy take up the issue of copyright reform in terms of the movies and the music?
No. What Occupy should do is run candidates for the ballot.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, like in Washington State, we have a system they call it an open primary now, is one of the top 2 or whatever. You get 16 characters on the ballot. You can say whatever you want. It's like a, you can say whatever you want as long as it's appropriate and not obscene, okay? So you like prefer the Democrat Party, prefer the Republican Party, but you can have like prefers # OWS, prefers Occupy Seattle, Occupy Tacoma, or whatever. And then when you run for office in Washington State, the state publishes a voter's guide, a voter's pamphlet that goes to every voter in the state. There's millions of people get this booklet. And so then here you have an Occupy person, their picture, and then here's your platform. Where's the lady who mentioned the banks? We want to reform banks. We want to have a state bank. We want to have copyrights, whatever you're doing. I mean, that's my recommendation, but I get grief from Occupy Wall Streeters. That's the last thing we need to do. Where are they? Where are the occupiers anyway? Where'd they go? They're here somewhere. I don't know.
Okay. There's this book I left in one of these stairs, and I want you to pick it up, take it home with you, and answer the cover letter that's hidden in the book. Okay. And over to you.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, we're gonna be wrapping it up in a minute. We got 2 more questions right here. Excuse me, this gentleman and this young lady right here, and that'll be it. Say who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Peter from Sag Harbor, New York. I just wanted to know what it felt like recording with Butch Vig and Dave Grohl again on the new Foo Fighters album after being with. Sorry, a great question. Cool. Because Nevermind is an album that changed my life, and I know it was such an influence on a lot of people. And I don't know if that was the last time or first time you guys had been in a room together since that, or just wanted to hear your thoughts about it.
It was great. I mean, it's always nice to see Dave and Butch, and Dave and I always have a lot of fun when we're together and to do music. I walked in there, and then there are like all these cameras, like he was making a documentary, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is LA. Everybody's doing like a reality show. And then we went to this Tenacious D thing, and then there was these other cameras there. It's like, oh yeah, this is LA. I got to remember to dress nicer or something. But anyway, so I got through that, and it's like, well, you're going to play accordion, Chris. I'm like, oh, you spoke to the right band, And so it was just fun. We did some other things, but you got to ask Dave. It's through the grace of David Eric Grohl where I do these things. He's the man. And people ask me, he goes, are you ever jealous of Dave and everything he's done since Nirvana? And I'm like, listen, man, he has stayed focused. He has worked hard. He rocks. The Foo Fighters rock. How do you be jealous of something like that? I mean, he's earned everything he's worked for.
Hi, I'm Harley, and I write for Consequence of Sound and Billboard. And you said you didn't want to get into file sharing and your thoughts about it, but if you wouldn't mind, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about it, especially in light of your relationship with the record industry and all that.
Remember in Spinal Tap, like, kick me, because I'm the musician, right? Because when musicians talk about file sharing, then they get just kicked. Boom, ow, stop it. Unless you're into that kind of thing or whatever. But let's talk about Google, a corporation. These corporations. No, a corporation, right? Okay, they have this. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Google Plus. Okay, and they have this deal where they want you to share content on YouTube, right? And they'll cut you in. Here's the deal: if you make something creative, totally stupid, it doesn't matter. As long as it brings a million views, wow. Doesn't matter what it is. They'll cut you into the ads, okay? That's their business model. They can't do that without statutes protecting copyright, okay? It's like, hey, look at this thing, 1 million views. I'm going to put that on my site. That's not legal, okay? So if you're going to go kick, not that you will, God bless you, but if you're going to go kick a musician's butt over file sharing, why don't you think about someone like Google? You ever heard of Google? You ever use a Google service? Okay, I don't have anything against what they're doing. That sounds like a straight up deal to me. They'll cut you in. And somebody out there is going to make a lot of money off of some kind of video. whatever it is. If it could be witty, charming, insane. How many views did I get with that bass dropping on my head? And I haven't seen it. I mean, I don't get a cut of that, but it's just like, you know, I got a cut in my head. But anyway, you know, it doesn't matter. But you get my point, right? There's statutes protecting property rights. Just like I'm going to walk into your house and help myself to the refrigerator. What are you doing? I'm hungry. You know what I mean? Give me my wallet back. Oh, I just need the money here and the credit cards, but here's the wallet. You know, I don't know. See, don't kick my butt. Go write your representative. This is the law. Let's go after the law. We could have a property-less society where we all live together, you know, nobody owns any property, and we can all join hands here and we'll sing Kumbaya, Blessed Be the Tie, and Anarchy in the UK, okay? And then our goal of the utopian vision of free property-less society, hunters, gatherers, or whatever. Well, I don't think so. I think things, you know. So I'm not standing up here as an iconoclast. It's just somebody who's saying, let's, you know, work with the system and change. Just kind of change things. We came from somewhere. Let's just, you know, change it. So on that note, thank you.